Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star, Mopars.com. It is Mopar Monday. It is also delivery day. Delivery day of what, you ask? Well, delivery day of a long overdue item. And that item is right here. I will tell you, what's in this bag has been ordered, I don't know, I honestly think this is the third, possibly fourth time. And we got lucky. It actually went through this time. And if I pull this plastic out of your way, it's a glorious Wright Grip 2.0. This is full polish. This is 7/8. If you recall, we made the brilliant decision. It's probably saved us. I think overall we saved money. You know, should we have just bought the set? Maybe. But at work, outside of like repairs or freak things or like customer enhancement type of a deal, I know exactly what I deal with. I know everything, you know, you manufactured. I know the hardware I'm using, right? So I can kind of get by. There's no need for an 11/16, a 13/16, so on and so forth. There really isn't much need for a 7/8, but the reason that I've got to have it is 1/2-inch tube nose. I think birds are trying to nest on the sidewall of the shop there. I'll have to check that out in a second. But it's 1/2-inch tube nuts, flare nuts, if you will. And this is what I needed. So I have had this thing ordered, I don't even know how many times. There's a good look at it for you. Amongst the many things Wright does well, aside from the polish in this case, the large, easy to read, easy to see stamps. Now obviously I can tilt this, get it in the right light, and it's kind of difficult, but in person it is glorious. The other thing I love, boom, both sides. Yes, there's a part number here, which again is kind of convenient. There's your branding on this side, but open end on the front side and the back side, box end on the front side and the back side. I don't feel like there's a ton I need to tell you here. We're just finally completing the set that I wanted to have. So that's what we've kind of got there. Will we add a few more? Possibly. But this is going to be everything I would need. I don't have anything here to show you since they're at work in the cart, but they've been phenomenal. They've been everything I hoped they would be. It is weird going full polish when I'm so used to kind of like satin finish and black after a while. But if you don't recall the story on why I picked these, my favorite wrenches ever, I'm talking all time, Proto Challenger 500. This isn't junk. This isn't like, you know, the Blackhawk. No. This was American made. We had several. We did have some sets that were satin, but the ones that I loved were polished, and that's why I elected to go this route. I will not lie, I personally and Wright kind of dig the black industrial finish. The catch is, and the only real downside to them, I don't want to lose them. I don't think I'd lose them, but I think I could misplace them easily. There's a lot of places I work where it's dark, and there's certain edges and ledges that you don't want to traverse with something going this way, or to the sides in some instances. This sticks out like a sore thumb. The satin chrome would be easy to find. The black, it would be the most difficult to find. That's really the only negative on it. But this will essentially turn 1/2-inch tube nuts for like 90% of its life. Every once in a while, I'm sure something will come up otherwise, and I'll be glad to have it. But this entire time, I've had to use a pliers wrench. Like every time I've had to go and do that, at least back with my cart, right? The other workstations, it's not an issue, but I am now covered on the 7/8 front, and you would think that that would essentially complete what I wanted to have. You would be wrong, and I was wrong too. So this one has been sitting here waiting for this to come in. Again, for the life of me, when I order something, don't cancel it. This applies to everyone. If I want it canceled, I will let you know. But this has been canceled for me multiple times, and it's super annoying because it just drags out the inevitable of this actually arriving in hand. Now, this next item, very, very similar. In fact, just a 2 sizes down. It's a 5/8. And you think, 5/8? What are you going to do with that? Well, again, it's not the bread and butter, but it was, man, probably I don't know, time is flying by, 4 or 5 weeks ago. One of the great annoyances in life, one of my pet peeves, is leaking air fittings. It drives me crazy. I don't know, some of you might be the same way, but I can hear that across the shop. There can be grinding, there can be the forklift running, there can be a freighter, there can be all kinds of noises, but I hear that air. And the other thing that drives me nuts is the hum of machines, right? Like, the drill press is off, but it hums. The bandsaw is off, but it hums. And I have to go and physically, the bandsaw, you have to unplug. The drill, you have to, like, punch the button again, right? And then the hum goes away. So, if you're thinking, like, oh, I know why you bought this, others of you still have no clue. So coming in, I primarily run Milton fittings, and I went, and for whatever reason, I don't know why I didn't think of this, because I do it all the time, but typically on your airline, you're going to have 9/16, you know, on your crimped fitting. What do you need to spin on your quick coupler? Well, in the case of everything I use, it's 5/8, and I screwed the pooch and didn't buy one. Here it is. The good news is I ordered this and it shipped because 5/8 just isn't as common or as in demand, I suppose. So this should take care of me. Again, just like I was having to use a pliers wrench on this front, that's the same thing I did here, which actually works pretty good, especially a 10-inch, because you get good leverage. But yeah, just periodically, it's one of those things, you know. I have airlines that I use all the time, and my quick coupler fittings don't leak. And one reason for that is I don't stand full vertical, you know, and pop it off the tool and have it take the course of gravity right to the pavement. Okay. Yeah, it's only like a 4-foot fall, but you do that multiple times an hour, and the abuse adds up over time. So it's one of those deals, you know, if people had to, say, buy their own, maybe they'd treat it a little bit better. But I try to train people when they come in. It's like, hey, you know, take that off and set it down. And then it's a lost cause. I just give up on people and move on with my life. But that's why this one is here. So very limited use for both of these, but it's good to have them. So we now have a proper wrench. Again, these have been fantastic. Also, when I make the tubes with these, I make a test every single time, so I'm using that quite a bit, the 7/8. 5/8, again, outside of the airlines, it would have to be a freak deal. Machine repair, oddball, you know, fastener, customers, something along those lines. I can't think of anything past that, which again is how it slipped through the cracks there on me. But that essentially, as best I know, completes our Wright grip set in the full polished iteration. I'm torn. I'm somebody that likes to have 2 sets of wrenches. Why? Front and back. Kind of unsure on the ratcheting side. The big VHA set is out there, one of them. And then for the bread and butter of that one, which would be like 1/4 to 3/4 basically, I'm torn. I don't know if I want to go Stahlwille. I don't know if I want to like try Hazet. I don't know if I like take something here that I technically wouldn't have to have and just throw it out. Maybe move them around back and forth, get a feel for everything. The thing I've been most tempted to do, aside from Stahlwille, is another set of Wrights, possibly in satin or the black, although again that's risky for the reasons we mentioned, but that's how well I like these. The Protos, I brought one in, 9/16 to sort of demo it, because again I use that all the time, can't have too many of them. I don't really like the finish on them anymore. It's a good wrench, it's just the Proto Challenger 500. It's what I like. Even some Proto Challengers. Again, this predates my time, you know, on the clock and everything, but those are, I just love them. I don't know. I've had several of you say the same thing, you know, exactly what I'm talking about. Your place of work or your, you know, your parent or you have the same wrenches. They were great. I love them. And this was the closest modern equivalent to what I could find. I kind of think Proto's not the easiest thing to thumb through. If you haven't noticed, whatever your, you know, like suppliers have in stock, you can learn about, but past that, yeah, I don't know. They could stand to have a little upgrade on the online catalog, in my opinion, but it's a good wrench. I like the lengths of them and everything. It's just not quite what I'm accustomed to with the Challenger series. So it is what it is. The other item, these have been here a long time, and I think we're just going to go ahead and throw them down because it sort of makes sense with this haul. and it's right here. By the way, this is not red paint, this is blood. I don't exactly know what happened, just one of those things for the course of the day. But if I pop this open, you have no clue what's inside, right? So, if we keep digging... Oh, you say, yeah, the good stuff. Some of you already know, based on either the finish out or in some cases the rail. Now we'll kind of give it away. I got to spin these around, that drives me crazy. Again, I read left to right. Maybe you do something different, but right here, literally right here, these again, these may have come from HJE. Don't hold me to that. I mean, this stuff's been here a while. But, this is just a little basic 3/8 deep impact socket set. You see me, I've got tons of Proto stuff at work. Reason for that, it is readily available. It is, especially with the deals I've been able to get, like insanely cheap. I'm talking like some of this stuff, when we've had these big sales on it and then a coupon stacked, I couldn't walk out of Harbor Freight with something, you know, like in the ballpark. And I know the quality, I'm familiar with it. I really truly, I wanted to have a Wright for my stuff. We've got a few Wright impact sockets, particularly 7/16 half, 9/16 in one area. The thing is, like, Protos everywhere. Granted, you know, they're all old, so they don't really look black anymore. You'd think it was like a worn out chrome, but no, it's impact. But I kind of hated doing the all Proto, but it just, the deals were there, and hopefully, you know, I can keep my stuff from somebody walking off with it, and, you know, all's good in the hood, right? But in a perfect world, I think I would have gone all Wright for my setup, just to, you know, no questions asked, like, this goes in my cart, fool, how did you get it? And solve the problems in that manner. But this is not expensive. This is not a be-all end-all. This isn't like 3/16, you know, to 1.25 and 3/8 drive or anything crazy. It's pretty basic, pretty run-of-the-mill, but it's pretty dadgum functional. So what we've got, 5/16. Would we like quarter to break stuff off? Sure, but it's not here. We can add one if we want to. 3/8, use that a lot. 7/16, a ton. Half, a ton. 9/16, a ton. 5/8, not often. 11/16, almost never. And 3/4, a ton. So what is missing in this to make it a Goldilocks 3/8 setup for me? Well, we'd have to come up. We don't need 13/16. 7/8, debatable, not really. 15/16, yes. My next step up, it would be 3/4 hardware, so we need 1 1/8 inches. I think Wright probably would make that, but I don't really, if I'm doing something with that, I'd prefer to be on the 1/2 drive side. So this is one of those sets that's just going to cover 90% of the, granted the 15/16 would be nice, especially for use with 3/8 ratchets. That's the main thing, powered ratchets, which again, that's why you've seen me this thing right here. For whatever reason, when I bought these, I had to get 2 of them, so I've got one in the bag here. But that would be the possible adder. And past that, like, this is just really solid in terms of what I can do with it. The downside is, I'm sitting here and I'm having second thoughts, you know, like I've always planned to kind of pick up the Wright shallows, put them in the cart with this, just have the basics again, maybe bush it out to 15/16. And then I think, like, man, you know, I've got all these Proto sockets. And I love the Wrights, so maybe I keep these here. I've been torn on my 1/2 set. The shallows here in the US General are Wright, comprehensive set, 3/8 1.25 inches. Protos are deep. They're a massive, they're like one of those huge sets. Maybe a little smaller than 3/8, way like crazy sizes. It really should be, you know, 3/4 drive, but it is what it is. It was a great deal. I've considered taking that to work and, you know, then buying myself a set of Wright deeps to have here, and then maybe then these stay. I don't know. It's something I'm thinking about. I'm still kind of torture testing the Pittsburghs and mix of Capris and stuff. I just shredded a 1/2 swivel up real good today. It was already beat up, but today, oh, it took a licking. Yeah, almost have the writing off of it, I think, but there's no other way. The way the freight damage, of course, is how this happened, but there was absolutely no way to do that with a fixed socket, so I had to get the swivel, and then the swivel just rode. Made great access to the fastener, but then it's so bulky, it just rode right here on a very hard surface. And you can imagine what happens, right? It's just kind of metal on metal, and one of them is going to wear, so it was the socket, at least the coating, if you will. But yeah, those are still kind of in the mix there, and I'm sort of torn. I was thinking about it today. I was like, I should just get Proto 3/8 impact socket sets and keep this here. So I don't know, maybe that's what I'll do. What I want to do is grab the 11/16. You're like, why, idiot? You just said you don't even use that thing. Well, I don't, and I probably do on cars, but at work this is like, again, just once in a blue moon type of deal. What I love about Wright, it is a large stamping, easy to see stamping. Would it be cool if it was ink filled? Sure. Could you dress these up a little bit? Yeah. Could you put laser etching somewhere that'll come off? Yep, you could. They've got a really nice chamfer, which again, I am a chamfer guy. That is something I personally prefer. Right there, again, just gloriously large stamping. I don't know of anyone that does it better. And not only is this large, it's actually functional, okay? Whoever's running the roll stamp there actually keeps everything seated. Maybe there's companies that have something slightly larger, but if they don't have it seated correctly, they don't have the pressure right, the machine's worn, something's wrong, because it's just faintly stamped and you can't see it. So they also do a really good job there with the Wright USA. Just a ton of stuff to love on these. But the 11/16 is important because right here, you're thinking like, whoa, that's a massive hole. What's going on here? This is the Proto from the US General. That's why it has that sloppy little orange fill. And you're like, hey, that doesn't look used. You're right. It hasn't been used. And that's because I got it for comparison purposes. Protos are pretty chonky, especially as you get up there in sizes. This Wright, you got to remember, this is 3/8 versus 1/2 inch. If I had to pick what I like better, I do have more experience with Proto. It's the known commodity of, it's like an old friend, if you will, family at this point. The Wright is a known commodity, but not on the same quantitative side. If I had to pick one, I would probably go Wright, but Proto, and again, you can get pretty good buys on Wright. It's much easier to find a good buy on Proto. I'll just leave it at that. So it's also kind of the budget-friendly option. But very, very similar setups here. The sidewall of the Wright, despite being the 3/8 versus 1/2 inch drive, very, very similar here. What I want to do now to really highlight the difference, this little shallow guy. You're thinking like, well, is this going to be 1/2 inch drive again? It sure is. And you're thinking, is that 11/16? It sure is. You can tell it's right by the stamping. There's that sidewall. So 3/8 Wright versus 1/2 inch Wright. Hopefully it conveys that that is a noticeably thicker sidewall, right? Similar structure, similar construct. Look at that. If you can kind of just dumb this down to the point of just matching OD to OD, I've got it smooth and flat on my, between the index and traffic finger, and there is a big rise. Okay, this is the 1/2 inch Proto. Again, you can tell by the orange and also kind of the machine marks when you get used to it. But right here, the Wright, there it is again. The Wright, just a little bit beefier, right? So very, very close. And again, some of the Protos, you get some chunks up in there in the larger drive sizes. This, though, is a really good comparison. This is a Capri. Okay, this is what we started filling out the Master Tech with. And you think, that doesn't look used either. Again, it's 11/16. This size was selected for a reason. Flip that down. That's a much thinner sidewall, right? So let's come in, and we're going to take our 1/2 inch Wright versus the Capri. And let me autofocus here with my finger for you. Yeah, pretty noticeable, right? We're dropping that down. We're going to go ahead and get the Proto, which again, that is 1/2 inch, so it's not like a totally fair comparison. But boom, 3/8 versus Proto. And then the comparison that's most useful here, this is a Capri Let's spin it around. To Capri's credit, they do laser etch, and they also stamp. You can see right there, it's not a terrible stamp. The Wright, just slightly bigger. It's almost like a case of the font. It's just like easier to read, or preferential to me anyway. Some of you might prefer your 6s like that. That's a little bit more traditional. What is that, like Arial versus Times New Roman or something, right? But when you spin it around, and we get this back over here, you'll note the Wright is just a little bit deeper, right? Again, these are both 3/8 drive. You'll also note chamfered, not chamfered. I despise these Capris not being chamfered. When I bought those, I did not know that, and it kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. And, again, personal preference. Are they functional? Yes. Do they work? Yes. Is my 15/16 it's covered in red at work beat up? Sure, but it's still there, still taking a beating. Here's the catch, though. What kills me, you drop down to quarter drive, and Capri all of a sudden has these chamfered. Makes no sense to me, but this is what I would prefer. You can hopefully see here on this drive side the difference. Again, pay attention to the square, pay attention to the chamfer, and just, does this look beefier here, the one between my index finger and thumb? It should, because it is. Again, slightly longer, and right here, just subtly thicker. Now, there is a trade-off. This stuff, you know, kind of, you got to think industrial sort of a deal. Could you use that in automotive? Oh, Lord, you could. It would be fantastic impact sockets. Would it become a problem, particularly in automotive situations? Yes. Could it become a problem in industrial situations? Yes. And you're like, what's the problem? I thought you were over here hyping these up, and you've said before how great Wright impact sockets are. Here's the catch. This is what you got to keep in mind. The fatter the sidewall, realistically, you know, like the heavier the mass, especially with a good known metal composition, the better the impact socket, right? You want that. You want it to be heavy. You want it to impact and turn. It's a slug. It's a good thing. It's desirable. However, if that's your bread and butter, right? Like right now, my work cart, I've still not purchased 1/2-inch chrome sockets. Because if I'm using 1/2-inch, even if I'm doing a breaker bar manual style or throwing it on a ratchet, I just run my impact sockets, right? It's cheap, it's easy, it makes sense. The downside, if I were to grab a Wright or Proto or anything, you know, pick your brand, throw it down here, and it's a chrome socket, sure, the lengths might be the same. They're going to be very, very similar, same structure profile on the hex side, drive-in, chamfer, everything. Sidewall will be significantly thinner. Why is that a big deal? Because let's say that you've got like a cutout hole here. This big, awesome impact socket might get stuck here, right? And you got two choices. You can either modify your socket. You can come in here and kind of hog that out if you can. Maybe you can hammer it on and force it out and get lucky. Or you've got to get, let's say, something important, or you can't just go chopping things up, and you're like, I would have to whittle this away to nothing. So you're thinking, like, what do I do? Well, you're probably going to go and you're probably going to get a chrome socket, and it's going to drop right in there. There is an advantage to these. This is why you've heard me tout the Pittsburgh impact sockets, if you will. Those basically, by construct, and one of the reasons they're cheap, they're a thinner wall, but that has an advantage sometimes, which we just described. So where that Wright and the Proto wouldn't go in here, the Capri does. All right. So it's not the best situation in terms of an actual impact socket functioning, but it got you where you needed to go, and those were too big. So there are trade-offs. I don't know that Wright makes a thin-walled impact socket. Proto does. You do then pay a premium for a thin-walled impact socket. And again, if you're sticking to these as your bread and butter Wright or Proto type of a set, that's where you can slot in something like Capri, maybe Tecton, maybe something from Harbor Freight, maybe Sunex, that's going to have a thinner profile. You might find some slug somewhere that would be detrimental and even fatter sidewall. It's unlikely. But for the most part, anything you buy versus either of these two old standby American brands is going to have a thinner sidewall, particularly as you go down the price scale towards cheap. All right. And again, in limited use, if you use this all the time until it doesn't fit, and then you bust this out, you're going to get way better life cycles out of these. You've got your workhorses here, and then they're complemented with a cheap set. just makes good sense to me, right? So that's what I wanted to showcase there, and that's really it for the tool hauls. Is kind of just the right stuff, if you will. Literally in this case. We got 5/8 and 7/8 for the reasons described, and then we got these guys right here. So it is cool they come on the rail. It is a fairly nice rail. I'm just kind of set in my ways with Ernst and MTS. This is functional. I want to say I found something where you could actually get a little socket boss or rip off for rails like these if you liked it, because the biggest problem I have with these and the aluminum ones, which sometimes on the anodized aluminum rails this varies wildly, but like Astro's anodized blue, I love that color. The problem is, like, I open the drawer, and if they didn't fall over, you know, that way, then when I close the drawer, they do that. You get the idea. It's annoying. My Ernst don't do that, and my MTS stuff doesn't do it either, but it is what it is, right? So let me know your thoughts on this. If you prefer Wright, Proto, if you just run cheap stuff, if you hate them, if you love them, if you set them aside for certain situations, if it's the same as I described, like these are your go-tos, but certain situations, certain applications, especially if it's redundant tasks like manufacturing, or if you're at a dealership, you probably know, like, oh, hey, I run into this out in the field. You're thinking like, hey, you know, these are great, but there's that one time that I can't access what I need to, and I had to put a chrome socket on. I need to get a cheap impact, you know, it'll slide in there. You'll kind of be attuned more with what you've got and what you need to set up. But, like I said, a lot of times I kind of grew up in this stuff, right? And of course I do cars for fun, and then I think a lot of times people in other trades, like, they somehow sleep on these, you know, like they don't know about Wright, they don't know about Proto. Even if they buy from the Mac guy, they may not know about Proto, which is insane, but you know, they're selling you the same thing for more money essentially. But it's just one of those deals. Even Williams, you know, a lot of people are unaware of that. That's sort of the similarities and trade-offs there. But for me, it's what I came up with, right? It's what I grew up with. It's what I've known. And so it makes sense to me to use it. And then I realize, hey, there are limitations. And, oh, you know, that Mac set does have a thinner sidewall type of a thing. But for all intents and purposes, outside of just limited access, I don't know that you can do better than Wright or Proto, especially when you factor in price. They are phenomenal. I've had zero issues with them, aside from, again, just over the years, you know, again, this, check back with me, you know, in a couple of years, and yeah, these aren't going to look like this anymore. They might be sort of more of like a dull silver, and you think, oh, you've been using chrome. No, no, no. That's the phosphate coming off, right? Again, you metal on metal enough over time, and just like the laser etching goes, or your cool finishing and all that, you know, laser etched details are gone. You wear metal on metal, right? And you're gonna have something go. So I either take paint off of something, I rub something down, or the socket's getting worn too, and it's usually a combination of both. So outside of that, which is honestly normal wear and tear, whether you've got the most expensive sockets in the world or the cheapest, they're all gonna wear similarly. But I have no complaints with what I've got. And again, this was a pretty good deal on these when I picked them up. They've just been patiently waiting here. I was going to pair them with some whole air tool deal. Not had time to get to that. And then, like I said, these were the 7/8, the poor thing. To my credit, I totally, that's me on me not getting the 5/8. The 7/8, I ordered that the first time with everything. I don't know how many times I've ordered it, again, at least 3, maybe 4. And, you know, it drags out months, and then they eventually cancel it without my approval. And I'm like, oh, you people, you know, like, I didn't want that canceled. So we got it. I'm happy. Hopefully you're happy here. Again, anything you want to talk about, share your thoughts and opinions, firsthand feedback. If you think Wright sucks, if you think Proto's better, or if you think they're the same but Proto's cheaper, maybe you're in a sweet spot and you can get Wright stuff cheaper than Proto. Maybe you hate all of it, you know, whatever. Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. But with that said, you know the drill. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all 3 at Lone Star Mopars. If you enjoyed the video, I encourage you to leave a like. If you like multiple videos, I encourage you to subscribe. If you jump your charger across the creek, you finally get your Wright 7/8 wrench, spin it while jumping the General Lee, YouTube just might notify you we got new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. With that said, thanks so much for watching. I hope I catch you back here for more. I was like half a second from having that done, but yeah. Thanks for watching, and I hope I catch you back here for more action from the shop.